South Africa and Ireland, folks. Game number 2. The series finishes a draw. Don't you wish there was a third test of this series? I certainly do. This game had everything. Last minute drop goal to win it. There was blood everywhere. There was a try from Conor Murray who got a try last week. The Irish side kind of a bit written off with all the injuries they had. Such an experienced South African side. Pollard kicked his goals this week. Ireland kicked a lot more off 10. Putting the kind of pressure on this young Crowley, but no, he did really well. From the anthems, the intensity was there. Sold out Durban, it looked bloody hot. I don't know. I'm rattled. What a crazy game. I don't know what I've just seen. It kicked off at 3 in the morning for me in New Zealand, but there was no chance of falling asleep. We'll try to wrap up some of the kind of key events and some stats, but you guys let us know what you thought of that one. What a crazy game. Obviously, Ireland, no Sheehan, no Aki, no Casey from last week. Pieter-Steph dropped to the bench. But then South Africa, no Roux from a few minutes in because he gets a knock trying to tackle James Lowe. HIA doesn't come back. Franco Mostert's bleeding early. Eben Etzebeth's bleeding early and often. Mostert only lasts 16 minutes in this game. They lose 2 of their players really early on, the South Africans. They don't come back on. Tyke Furlong lasts into the second half. He also doesn't come back on after getting an HIA. After Klerk has an HIA. Intensity was high, but South Africans lost a couple of guys early, got free kicked at scrum time, and Eben conceded a penalty for shooting up early. Ireland first points of the board, 3 points to 0. And there were a few errors both ways. Crowley kicked it out on the full for Ireland. South Africa had a line out that went a bit awry. But the first try and the only try of the game came through some pretty slick hands from the Irish and was from a South African goal line dropout, which seems to be a new kind of set piece, right? Teams are planning what they do with these goal line dropouts. We've had them for a few years now. There was a time when teams would set drop goals from these things early on. If you remember way back when they started doing goal line dropouts, it was the World Cup qualifying campaign. The Americans, believe it or not, were the ones that seemingly were partly kind of pioneering the drop goal in reply to the dropout. We saw it in this game as well. But the Irish, early on, not going for the drop goal. It was Crowley to Osborne, who had a half break to Henshaw, and Murray, who finished it. 10 points to 0. What a start from the Irish. This is when Mostert goes off. Eben comes back on. Arendse Neyman's gone off and on, replacing guys left, right and centre, but he's back on for the rest of the game. And South Africa have had no ball, but they did get a scrum penalty. Nche, who had a bloody good time of it, he gets man of the match, interestingly, in a losing shift, but they tend to pick the man of the match a couple of minutes before full time. So if you lose it at the death, you might get a losing guy get man of the match. Ox wins his team a scrum penalty, and Handré Pollard, a microscope on his goal-kicking effort this week. He kicks him flawlessly. It was a great kick straight in the middle, 10 points to 3. But man, Ireland just had South Africa under so much territorial pressure. Boy, did their forwards front up, especially in that first half. When do you see South Africa, after like 20-odd minutes, have 40% or less possession and territory at home? It doesn't really happen. They had a cross kick to Nche at one point, looked to go through some phases, but Tyke Byrne ended up knocking it on. And the box also played some flatline rugby when they did actually have some ball, quick wide ball to Kolbe, but he knocked it on as well. So both sides kind of missing a few chances. And then maybe the best chance of the box in the first half was Kwagga Smith with his charge down on Crowley. I'm not quite sure if it was a full falcon and hit him in the face or if it hit his hands. But either way, he maybe could have grubbed it through with that kind of sevens background of his, but he charges down Crowley. Looks to regather the ball, just can't quite make the try line. So Osborne did well to bring him down with the tackle. But yeah, really, really high intensity first half. South Africa, interestingly, on 31 minutes, opted for a penalty. They could have kicked. Not a simple kick, but they certainly had a kickable opportunity. They went for a maul, which Ireland defended really well. They shut down South Africa's maul largely pretty well in this game, but from the resulting scrum, Furlong got pinged at scrum time anyway. So South Africa got a second bite at the cherry and indeed opted for the penalty second time round. So 10 points to 6 with about 5 minutes to play in the first half. Pieter-Steph gives away a pretty soft one for a wee obstruction shoulder on Henshaw from a Crowley up and under. Ireland opted for the 3 for that one, so 13 points to 6. And then South Africa's restart. Too big from Handré Pollard. Kicks it dead. Can their scrum bail them out a second time? No. James Lowe goes down the left wing, dinks it through. Pollard gets caught in goal. 5-metre scrum for the Irish. Doris goes close. There's a bit of handbags after some advantage, but it ends up with an Irish penalty. So 16 points to 6 at half-time. A really, really impressive first half from Ireland. As I said, like with the injuries they suffered in the week between the two games, there were a lot of doubts as to whether they could overturn this big Springboks side. In the first half, they've had 65% possession. They've had 58% territory. They've had 8 clean breaks to 1. They've had 13 defenders beaten to 5. And they've had 200 plus run meters to 86. The only area they've not really been able to boss the game is the scrum. It's been a great first half from Ireland. What is South Africa going to do in reply? Well, they started with a bit of a hiss and a roar. If not for Faf de Klerk kind of having a interesting choice to try and last minute go for a grubber kick, I think South Africa maybe put a lot more pressure on because they may have lost an early lineup, but Sasha Feinberg-Mngomezulu, who's playing fullback with no Roux on the field, sparks an attack, beats about 4 tacklers. South Africa go through phases, but then Faf goes for a kick, which gets nowhere. So it's a bit of a let-off for Ireland. And he goes off not long later for an HIA. Him and Furlong both don't last long into the second half. South Africa not long later end up taking a shot at goal. And that would be the story of their second half, man. They really kept the scoreboard ticking over. It goes 16-9 with the first one. Then there's a croc roll from Doris, which sees him yellow carded. Up for 3 points, which makes it 16-12. That one was a bit of a... I think Luke Pearce, who's the AR for this one, makes this situation go longer than it needs to be. And it's one thing I don't like about Luke Pearce, is that when he's an AR, he really likes to get involved. Like, if you're the ref, you should be the one, basically the boss. You're telling everyone what's going to happen. You have the conversation with the TMO. You have the final say. But once the ref and the TMO had made a decision that Doris was going to get yellow carded, no. Luke Pearce has to come in and make sure it's not Ryan that's getting yellow carded. But no, there you go. It's Doris. Ian Tempest, the TMO, says no, it's definitely Doris that gets yellow carded. So he gets yellow carded for a pretty nasty looking croc roll on Malcolm Marx. Malcolm Marx fortunately is able to play on. So we've seen a few of those in recent weeks where guys have almost kind of had their foot planted in the wrong position. But he's all right, fortunately. Then James Ryan gets pinged for being offside. And Pollard's not missing. So we've gone from 16-6 to 16-15 within kind of like 10 minutes of the second half. Pollard is not looking like missing anything in this one. Then you get Malcolm Marx with that almost croc-rolled leg of his, with a line break from Achia Snyman. So they have to go through some phases. Nche almost knocks the ball on, but I guess he visualised that it was going to be a piece of cake because he grabs back a hold of it, and then Porter gets pinged for reaching past the ball at the breakdown. So 18-16, South Africa are in the lead. They've certainly come out of the blocks in the second half and taken control of the game. That being said, the Irish did hit back for a long shot from Crowley to make it 19-18, but then not long later the penalty exchange continued when the Irish kind of dropped a high ball from Feinberg-Mngomezulu to make it, they were offside, so it makes it 21-19. 21-19, the momentum is still with South Africa. And then it really looks like Ireland are kind of, I don't want to say choking, but maybe tiring. They're not going to be able to withstand this kind of momentum because Grant Williams has a really nice kick. Osborne leaves it like it's going to go out, but it bounces infield, so he has to grab it. Then he gets tackled into touch by Grant Williams. The Irish maul defence holds, but then they concede another penalty at scrum time. This time it's Beelum. South Africa up for the poles. It sneaks inside. 24-19. It's a 2-score if it's a kicks game, or Ireland have to score a try. And tries were not looking like they were going to be easy to come by in this one. But that being said, that man Frawley, who's come off the bench, had some impact for Ireland, man. I mean, Ireland did get held up from a 5-metre tap, but then from that resulting dropout, Frawley just hits a drop goal. I mentioned it had happened before. I'm surprised teams don't do it more. Because like I said, when they first introduced the law, teams were going for these drop goals in reply a lot. But then they kind of went out of fashion. But 24-23, one-score game. And then I swear Ireland have thrown it away a couple of times. They have one pass when they're building some pressure past the James Lowe out wide, which goes into touch. Frawley has one where he kicks it out on the full. So it looks like Ireland are just going to throw this away. But then with 30 seconds to go, they got one last shot. And it's surely too long for a drop goal. But no, Frawley freaking nails it. It is a hell of a kick from a guy who's not played that much Test rugby, who's in South Africa in front of how many fans? 50,000 fans? Not wanting him to get anywhere near it, but boy, does he slot it. They have to stop the game to have a quick check that there's been no obstruction, but there's certainly none. Kolbe's going to go for the charge down, but he slips over. So, man, what a finish. I'm lost for words, but yeah, crazy. I don't have anything better to describe it, I'm afraid. It was a manic game. Great first half from Ireland. Great second half from Australia? South Africa, sorry, it's now 5:30 in the morning. Ireland, just when they needed to find something at the death, managed to find it through a few important guys, but the one who's going to get the plaudits is Frawley. Stats, run meters finished 335 to 295 to South Africa. Remember, they had like something in the first half. Possession finishes 47-53, so pretty even. Territory 49-51. So as I said, big first half one, big second half the other. Clean breaks finished 3-8. So Ireland didn't manage any more in that second half. South Africa had a couple. Defenders beaten finishes 21-15. That is in South Africa's favour. Remember, it was 5-13 at halftime. So South Africa put on a lot more in the second half. Penalties conceded 8-11. Ireland with a few more. A few of those at scrum time. Kicks from hand 30-36. Ireland with a few more. Like I mentioned, a lot of kicks off 10 this week for Ireland, which was a little bit of a switch because it was more off 9 last week. Individuals, Kwagga Smith, 10 carries, 53 metres. Caelan Doris, 14 carries, 57 metres. So both the number 8s really busy. Arendse and Kolbe both had 40 plus run metres. Van der Fleer had 15 out of 17 tackles. Pieter-Steph Toit had 14 from 16. But man, what a game. What a game. That's a proper test match. God, I wish it was going to 3. I really wish it was going to 3. Andy Farrell's a good coach at planning that second game, isn't he? Like, they came to New Zealand a couple of years ago, lost the first game, came back in the second one. So the third one would have really been fascinating to test the brains, which are, Andy Farrell and Rassie Erasmus, because they are both right up there. But, massive, massive win for Ireland. It's another close game, 1 point. Crazy, crazy stuff. I think I need to go to bed because it's 5:30. Or do I have a coffee and stay up for France against Australia? France against Australia? France against Argentina. Sorry, it's really late. If you want to buy me a coffee, there's a link down in the description to that one. But yes, what a game. Both classy sides, both entertained me, and I'm sure you. Disappointment for the Boks, but man, what a performance from the Irish. Close game. You guys let us know your thoughts. I will talk to you again soon. See you later.